Before I start, I want to say how happy I am to see you all, your faces. I haven't seen your faces for a long time, and when I see your faces, I see the face of God. So, John and I, we moved to Lincoln in 2007, so that's 8 years ago. And we went to start to look after our family more. Our family was expanding, and we'd been doing many things for many years on a more national level. And we felt it was time to go to our family. And we went with every intention, coming to events and coming to the annual gathering every year. But somehow it didn't happen. Different things happened with our health, and I've had 4 knee replacements on my right knee, and I think it must be because my name begins with a W, Weedall. I think they give the oldest knees to the ones who begin with W. So the first 3, they were pretty useless, and finally I got a nice surgeon who tried to put it right on the 4th one. So I am going to trust him to do the one on the other leg. But yeah, that was a problem every year, something happening. And John also, he had 2 strokes, one year and then the next year, so we couldn't come then. And then, just as we thought the pattern was about to change, John had a diagnosis of cancer of the stomach. Sometimes bad things happen, but John and I always take the view that as we are the only ones in our family who are following and attending our true parents, then naturally we're going to have to pay the price for that. So with that kind of view, our harsh circumstances always became a blessing. And we were happy to go that kind of course. So John had an operation to remove his stomach, and he had great hope that this was going to be a good outcome. Just the week before he had his stomach removed, I think Franklin might have told a few people this joke, but John, being John, he has a very, very humorous attitude. I'd given him a flying lesson for his birthday, so I said, you better take that flying lesson. So a week before he had the operation, he had his flying lesson, and he said to the instructor, I'm having my flying lesson now because next week I won't have the stomach for it. This was John. Anyway, he took it all in his stride, and we did think he was going to recover well. And after a few months, it appeared that wasn't going to be so. So his cancer came back, and then we knew he only had a few months. So this was a time then to gather everybody together and really use this as a witness. You can witness to your life, but you also can witness to your death as well, because death isn't the end. So it was a time when our family could come together, we could talk, we could share things, they could get things off their chest, make peace, because sometimes children and dads, they don't always have peace. But it was a very wonderful moment in our lives to have that. That's John flying, I think. One lesson did it. Yeah, so it was a great witness to our life of faith, but also what happens when you're going to go to the next stage. And when we talked about the Sungwa ceremony, we decided that it should be in Lincoln because our family is very scattered, and it takes about 4.5 hours to get here, and some of them are even further away, or to the farm rather. And we had to make the decision what's right for our family, and we decided Lincoln, and it was the right decision for us. We all have our own courses, so I'm not saying everybody does the same, but this was right for us. And his Sungwa ceremony became a great witness to many, many people. No matter how ill John was, he always took a daily walk, and he'd meet people, and he'd always make friends with them. That was his life of faith, witnessing to people all the time in the most simplest way. And these people approached me when they knew the ceremony was coming. Can we come? And I said, of course you can come. And after the ceremony, they came up to me and they said, we don't know how to tell you this, but we should be feeling sad, but we all feel so happy and we feel so uplifted. And this was a real testimony. And then there was the phenomena of his photograph. This photograph was taken by our granddaughter in a very casual moment, but we all agreed it captured John's essence. It had his cheeky smile, it had his twinkly eyes, and this was on the order of service. And these friends that he met on his little walks, afterwards I met them and they said, we got the order of service in our kitchen and we talked to John all the time. And this was true. All of our family, we have his picture on our screensavers and our phones because it's just him, it's just how he was. So this is the phenomena of John. And even one of my daughter's friends, she attended the Sungwa with her little son. And just 2 weeks before the first anniversary of John's Sungwa, this little boy, he's only 4, he said, Mummy, isn't it time John's birthday's coming up? He said, when we had that party and we put him in the ground. And she said, I don't know how he remembered, but he knew the party was due again. So this is John, this is the way he was. So what about life after John's passing? Because this is what Franklin asked me to speak about, because when he said, can you give a testimony, I thought, why me? For 8 years I haven't been involved in any events or many major things. What do you want me to talk about? He said, talk about life after John. Well, there's life after John. John's still here, of course, isn't he? But one thing after John's passing that really hit me was liberation. Because when you liberate your spouse, it creates a very different feeling from liberating your ancestors. It's very real. And I realised, actually, we'd done quite a few, in fact, quite a lot of liberations, but for 8 years almost, we hadn't done any. And not long before John passed, he actually said, we should do something about that. So I made the determination that before his 100-day ceremony was up, I would do the up to 210 generations. Because I really felt this is really real. I can't ignore this any longer. One thing I have to say is I miss John very, very much. And in fact, I was overwhelmed with the depth of feeling that I had about that. And every day when I have my little hundoke, I report to John, I tell him what's happening with the family. I said, get the ancestors to help this one and that one. I'm not a person who sees people or gets this sort of visual experience. But this little hundoke experience is very real to me, talking to John. And also, John was a poet. Over the years, I've been married to him 46 years, but over many years, he used to write poetry all the time. And I kept coming across little scraps of paper where he'd written a poem here and there. And I always have to put them in books. And I found poems after he'd passed. One was about a period where he lost his memory because after his stroke and also when he became ill, sometimes the memory was not so good. But in a lucid moment, he'd written this very funny poem about his losing his memory and looking for it everywhere. And I just felt this was such a humour in this poem. And then I found another one, and it was for our children, and it was about not grieving after he'd gone. And I realised he was leaving these little treasures for me to find. And it's very poignant. But our life is eternal. And we will spend our life together in eternity. So one thing that is important, if you think about it, is your spouse. This is the person you're going to spend your eternity with. So don't you think it's important to spend a little bit of attention about perfecting our love with our spouse? This is really important. And One of the things that I find difficult is when John's not with me now, I found this, as I said, this overwhelming sadness. And I wondered why. And one hundoke I got the answer. It was Father's words. When a woman's husband dies, she experiences a big void in part of her life. The fortune of heaven and earth protects that which beats in accord with its rhythm. But when her husband dies, that rhythm is lost. All the forces of heaven that he embodied is swept away. This sweeping away is experienced as pain. So I think some people here may identify with that. So, as I said, if I give one piece of advice to couples, is that we should really treasure love. We should really treasure love so that we can have a love that beats in accord with heaven. This is what I felt through that reading. And it would be a great mistake if we didn't do that, because your eternal life is with your spouse. So, many times I was thinking how much I've missed all the people I know in this church, and I was thinking how I love to hear stories, I love to hear the news, I love to see how people are growing, the second generation taking responsibilities. I love to hear that. And sometimes I've had small experiences with John. When the handover ceremony was taking place, this was so exciting to me because I was so happy to see this momentous occasion when the second generation was taking over the baton of the British movement. So I was watching it on my laptop, and I said to John, John, look at them all, look at the people in the audience, we would have been there, we would see all the people, and look at Matthew, he's taking over this responsibility. I wish you could see it. And suddenly my screensaver flashes up with his picture, and there's John's face. And it happened 2 or 3 times during this time. I thought, yes, he's watching. I went to visit one of my granddaughters in Liverpool, and I was telling her a little bit about that experience, and she told me she'd had a spiritual experience with her granddad. And then she went out of the room, and she'd left me with the youngest of her children, one of my great-granddaughters, who was only 10 months. And this little one was in one of these baby walkers. And suddenly she starts to laugh, and she's looking around and twisting the baby walker around. She was enthralled, absolutely chuckling away. And I said, wow, I said, your granddad's come to see you. Because this is a great-granddaughter who hadn't been born when he passed. And it was just really a beautiful moment, actually. And I could see that John was being very playful with her, actually. He was very playful with her, as he always was with grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Our family is expanding. We have 11 grandchildren and 6 great-grandchildren, 1 more on the way. So love goes on. John's love is very much present in our hearts. Being in Lincoln, I miss being part of the church community. So I'm very grateful to Franklin and Cecilia because they keep me informed and they come and visit me. Recently we had a visit and we went on the castle wall. God was very good to us when we went to Lincoln because Lincoln area is very flat, but Lincoln City, on the hill is the castle and the cathedral, and we live just near there, so he put us on the top so we can look down. So, yeah, I do miss very much the community that we have here, but I do feel that the opportunity to develop this heart of love is what God has given us, and this deep love that John had for his family, we are able to pass that on in them. So it's important to continue to strive to be this person of love, to be able to experience the beat and rhythm of love shared with John, but also to perpetuate it in our ever-expanding family. So there are maybe a few points that I realise are important in my life. One is, of course, life of faith. We need a daily life of faith. I can't say I'm perfect at that. I'm on my own, so it's just a very small little hundoke. I try to keep all the conditions and tithing. It's important. Our daily life is important, our daily life of faith. And also, what is important is to be grateful, especially to our true parents and true mother. When, as husband and wife, we are one. And many people, I think, got a little bit confused when father passed. But we should not think that way, because mother and father are one. So when we see mother, we're seeing father. And this is so important, to really be grateful for that and to really appreciate the incredible work that True Mother is doing, and pray for her to have a long life to do that as well, because we need it. We need parents still. And then also, it's important to witness to people, reach out to people, even in the smallest way, like John did on his daily walks. It doesn't matter how you do it. You can have a great effect on the lives of people. So these are the treasures that John passed to me, and which I try to pass on now to our family and our community. And I hope in the future, when I get this other knee done, that I'll be coming here every year. That I won't have an 8-year gap any longer. But I really am very grateful. I hope I can get round to talking to you all the people I've missed. And again, you are the face of God. So thank you very much.